Up to that point, I never had body image issues. And then, lo and behold, I hate myself.
Hi, welcome to the Real Women of Boxing podcast. My name is Jacqui-Lee Pryce, and today's guest is the current WBA Super Lightweight Interim Champion, Sammy Worthington. Hi.
I'm so happy to be here.
Good to see your face. How is life treating you?
I mean, it very well, obviously. I mean, if you can see behind me, you took home some brand new luggage on Saturday, and it was just the most surreal experience. I mean, I know we're gonna get into it, but it just really feels like another day to me. It felt like I was just going into the gym for training because this is just a step. The best belt is the next one, and that's what I am really using as my motivation and my mantra for this next step in my career, because the goal is undisputed. So this is just the start.
I love your aiming high. I really do. And we will get into it a bit later, but you just very quickly, you fought on the 26th of July anyway, and you took away that WBA belt. We will get into it, but I'd like to take it back. For those people that don't know you over this side in the UK, you are from Kentucky, and the most well-known person, I guess, in boxing would be Muhammad Ali. But what else is Kentucky known for?
There's a couple nicknames for where I grew up, the Bluegrass State, Horse Country. But yeah, I just know it as home. I actually was born in Alabama. I grew up my early childhood in North Carolina. Now I'm currently in California, so I've kind of been all over. But Kentucky will forever be home. That's where I lived most of my life, and that's where I started boxing. So for me, I always say there are two places here on earth that I feel the most at home, and they're very interesting. One is in the ring. I mean, that makes sense because of my career. But another one is up on stage leading people in worship, which we can get into as well if you want to. But
Yeah.
because one of those spaces is in the ring, and that's Kentucky's where I started my career, it will forever hold a special place in my heart. But I started my career, speaking of Muhammad Ali, in Louisville, which is where he's from. He started off as Cassius Clay there, and my amateur coach actually was his teammate. And so there's just so much history
Yeah.
in that city specifically, but in my gym, I felt like I was growing up in the sport surrounded by such legacy. And I actually won one of my first titles, UBO super lightweight title in Louisville at the Muhammad Ali Center. So that was just really special. A historic night that really I felt like catapulted me into the title that I have behind me, and then on beyond into what I'm going to do next. And I really pray that back to legacy, that's something that I can step into moving forward.
Wow. What a story. Talk to me about your coach. You after training, I'm guessing that you had situations where you sat down and you were kind of grilling him for stories. Tell me a little bit about your coach and kind of the legacy that he brings with him.
So my amateur coach, his name is James Doolin, and he unfortunately, that with some health issues, we had to end up not parting ways, because he's forever my family, and he's still been someone that has spoken wisdom into my career. But he's not my current coach, but he's forever my coach. That's who, when I talk about my coach, it's James Doolin, Coach Doolin. But yes, stories. Oh my goodness! Like, if you went to my gym, it's in what's called Portland. It's just a ghetto in Louisville. It's just called Portland. And there's bars on the windows and the door, and you feel like you're kind of in this third world country when you go on the street. But once you step in there, it's like a museum of boxing. I mean, he's got pictures. He's got the Wheaties box that Muhammad Ali was on, and
Wow.
he's got a statue of Oscar de la Hoya that Oscar gifted to him. He's got a ton of boxing posters, and every poster he got at that show because he was there cornering someone or he was invited. There's just a lot of Mike Tyson. He trained there when he fought Brandon Douglas. Like, it's just Layla Ali trained. I mean, I could go on. Like,
Yeah.
as I'm thinking, like, I love this question. I've never gotten asked this question actually in any interview, and it was so cool to hear just the history that he's lived, in his life. I would always say that he's forgotten more about boxing than I'll ever know. Is how I feel. Just because of not just because of who he is as a coach, but because of the people that have poured into him as a fighter and a coach, both. And so that was really cool. He coached Greg Page. So I don't know. That's another heavyweight world champion that comes out of Kentucky. But Greg Page was also supposed to be the Olympian in '80, I believe, when we boycotted the Olympics. So he lived through all that. Like he got to see Rocky Marciano fight in person when he was 7 years old. Could you imagine Rocky Marciano fighting in person? So yeah, there would be many a times, we had wooden steps that went up to the ring. So he'd sit on those steps and he would just share. There were several times even in training that he'd get on a rant and we'd be like, thank the Lord, because it'd be like a break from training. But it was also a time I viewed that as part of training because it was a time for me to learn from him and his experience. He was a prisoner of war in Vietnam for 57 days. So not just in the boxing context did I get to glean from him. It was also just the sheer life experience that he had and has. I mean, um, he still lives in Louisville. I got to see him actually a few weeks ago at the beginning of this camp, and that was really special. Again, like he still speaks into me, even though he can't be, in my corner in the context that he used to be. He'll forever be in my corner, just figuratively and, maybe literally, just depending on what happens, with my career and how, the Lord brings up those opportunities. But I'm just really grateful for just who he is in my life. He's like I said, he's my family forever.
He sounds actually remarkable, and I feel like so many pictures were kind of passing through my mind when you were telling me, the story about the gym, and what is it like to walk into that gym in the first instant and sort of take in all of that history?
I mean, it really is like a speechless moment. You walk in it and you're just like, wait, the outside doesn't match the inside, you know? And it's like you've just stepped into an exhibit. And then to, walk around and see it's pretty spacious. Boxing gyms, they can be hole in the walls, like they can be warehouses, you just never know. It's just one big room. It's not like tiers or levels or anything. So there's the big ring and then the bags that surround it. But just the pictures and the statues, everything that surrounds, like,
Yes.
lines the walls, that's where you get those stories, and so you're, walking around, and then Coach Doolin comes, alongside you, and he's like, "Yeah, I remember when this happened, and, and then he came to the gym," and he's just starting to rattle off all these things, and it's interesting. We always joke because 'cause he'll be like, "You don't believe me, do you?" And then here he goes dialing Sugar Ray Leonard's number, and he gets Sugar Ray on the phone, and he's like, "Hey, Doolin, what are you doing?" It's like, "Okay, no, we believe you."
First of all, you were blessed to have, been mentored by him, but he also sounds a little bit like my coach, where those old school coaches, I they're a dying breed. They really are, because I think the new crop of coaches, they kind of have, not all, but sometimes they don't have that love and that sort of deep passion for boxing. And also in this country, I can't talk about the USA, but there are also some coaches that weren't necessarily amateurs that then became coaches. Let's just
Mhm.
put it like that. And it seems for some people it's a real business where, yeah, it sounds like you were able to absorb the history, but this guy was boxing. He lived boxing. He loved it for the sport. But it sounds like to me.
Yes, yeah, like, he embodied it, like you
Mhm.
said, and that passion, it's interesting because. To me, I'm always gonna be biased to the old school way because that's how I
Yeah.
I was poured into, but, there are advantages and disadvantages. It was his way or the highway, but that worked for me, and that really did lay such a solid foundation for me. I still, all the time, get compliments on my technique and just, the actual fundamentals that I have, and it's all credit to him, and it goes back to what you said, that just passion and fervor for the sport, and for him at least, because I know this isn't indicative of every single coach, doesn't matter old school, new school. Um, he really just believed in the kids. Like, he didn't do it for money. I never paid him. Like, he never had any fighter pay him. He was just like, I love boxing. Like, he had an outside life. It wasn't, he had other sources of income and stuff. Um, but it was a nonprofit gym, and he just really loved the sport, and he loved the people that he got to pour into.
When you were saying it's my way or the highway, that old school, autocratic way of training. And of course, things, there are pluses and minuses to that. But again, I don't mind that kind of style, to be
No,
honest.
me either.
Yeah, I really don't. Obviously, underneath him or under his tutelage, you were 5 times national champion, I believe.
Yeah.
5 times national champion. And then talk to me about when you sort of then went on to the next level and were part of the USA or got picked to be part of the USA boxing team.
So when I won my last national championship, that's where they had picked for the worlds. So it's actually the first time that I met Claressa Shields. We met at a tournament, but that's the first time that we like connected and became good friends. So that to me is like the start of where I am now. Just bringing full circle, being under her promotion, and just really great friends with her now today. So that was the first time that I made an appearance on Team USA. And then this was probably about a year and a half after that. That's where the way that it is in the USA, again, I don't know either how it works in other countries as far as age groups go, but they had split us off into like juniors, youth, and then elite. And elite's, open. It's like, I don't know what the age is now, but at the time it was 19 to 40. So you had way more options as far as opponents go and opportunities. So my first elite tournament, I ended up getting second. I got silver, and this is all a part of my testimony. It's like such a beautiful story where I had really put everything into boxing, and I felt super crushed and let down by this, not only just the sport, but by God. I was like, why did you do this? Like, I've put in all this hard work. Like, you're supposed to reward me. Like, what is going on? And it's just like so funny that I'm literally speaking to the creator of the universe in such way. But it was actually, it ends up being really sweet, because after that February 8th, 2015, I realized like I need to surrender everything to him, because I can't hold on to this control anymore. I can't hold on to this anger and this bitterness and, all of this baggage that I had that was weighing me down. I surrendered everything, and I just received such freedom and joy. And that was, like I said, in February of 2015, a month after that tournament. And then I actually got invited a month later onto Team USA, because the girl that I had lost the split decision to, she stepped down. It was all very intentional. It's like I was trying to write my own story instead of just trusting that he knows better, he knew better, and just stepping into the purpose that he has for me. And so then I got to be on Team USA again, and that really uh, catapulted me into trying for the 2016 Olympics. That was where at that time at the Olympic Training Center, I got to lead Claressa to Christ, which it was really cool. At the press conference last week, she shared that testimony, and it was just a really sweet moment where she just poured her heart out. When you look at how Claressa is, she's open, but not always vulnerable. And that was a really like sweet moment where she was just like, this is who I am, and here's my heart. It's a beautiful thing, because she has so much beauty inside of her. But all that to say, after that time at the Olympic Training Center, it was like a duel against China, so it wasn't like a tournament or anything. I got to see how the Lord could use boxing. And then I stepped into, the 2016 Olympic trial, my run for that Olympics. I got fifth at the trials.
Let me take it back to the trial
Okay.
situation, because I'm still, although I've heard of this before, I'm still sort of slightly confused as to
Okay.
how it works in the USA. Because if you're on Team GB here,
Mhm.
and if you're on the podium squad, you're kind of almost guaranteed to go or get picked. And then it's on performance. And when I mean performance, not performance against each other, it's usually performance in major competitions. perhaps, and then they will take into account who's performing and who's not performing. Hence, obviously, the ones that are performing at that weight will go on to represent the country.
Yeah.
You have a trial, so I'm still. I've been. It has been explained to me, but I'm still confused.
So, probably you and me both, because they've changed it actually. So I'll say how it was working for the 2016 Olympics because I that's the only thing that I've experienced. It's similar, so this will give you like somewhat of an accurate picture of how it is. Um,
And can I just ask, was that for the Rio or was that for Tokyo? So in 2016, was your trials for Tokyo or was it for? I think it was Rio in
yeah. So
2016. Was it?
it actually this part of the story, I'm saying the 2016 Olympics, it was in 2015, all of this. So it was for Rio, the 2016. And that's I mean, typically how they do it, like it was at the end of 2015 to then like have the representatives somewhat picked for the 2016 year so that, they could start to train for the Olympics in August. So the way that it worked back then is you had to qualify, so there was a qualifier, and if you were I wanna say if you were, like, 1 or 2, maybe just the top one, you would get a automatic berth to the trials. I can't remember because they didn't have my weight class in that Olympics, and so I had to cut 2 weight classes. So I started off from 0. So I had, no points, quote unquote. I was the 8th seed at the trials, so I was the lowest. Um, so I had to go to the qualifier. There was 3 of them, and when by the time that I was able to even like cut the weight, and because I honestly when I made the decision, this was in May. The last qualifier was in September, and I in the beginning, and I was like, I'm gonna make this decision, but I have no idea if I'm even gonna make the tournament. Like, I don't know if I'm even gonna be on weight. I fought at 152. That means I was walking around at like 56, 54, a little, not that amateurs, we walk around about our weight. Um, but I was having to cut to 32, which means 31. Like I was trying to get like, under that weight cut limit. And then hold that weight. I had no idea how my body was going to respond. Like
Yeah.
it was really, it's honestly scary, that unknown. I ended up making the weight. Obviously I made it to the trials. I was the only one cause I was the lowest seed that fought every single day. And then I ended up, making it to the Olympic trials, which was then in October, I believe. So what happens is, all the qualifiers, there was 8 of them, 8 representatives in each weight class, which was only 3 for the women, for that Olympics. And then that was a double elimination tournament. So I ended up fighting 3 times at the trials. And then, I fought, went to the losers bracket, won, then was eliminated. And then they picked that representative, but then that representative then has to qualify internationally. So at least for
Mm.
the Olympics in 2016. But then like there have been Olympics where we didn't even have a representative for a certain weight class because they won the trials but they didn't win internationally. And I believe we didn't have a 112-pound girl for the 2016 Olympics because she didn't qualify internationally. So it's kind of like a 3-step process, but I know they do it a little differently now. Now we have like a high performance team on top of Team USA. So I'm not exactly sure how they do it. However, like they normally send like a sparring partner or something that will go with the representative. But they didn't do that for 2016. I couldn't tell you why, but I just immediately after getting out of the ring, I go to the bathroom and I tell my mom, I say, I'm going to Rio and I don't know how, but I know I am. Like I know I just lost. But that was what was supposed to happen. And then I was like, maybe I'll go as a sparring partner. Didn't have sparring partners. I was like, well, I don't know how I'm gonna go. But then I ended up being chosen through this program that takes chaplains for each team, and I was able to go through that way. And I got to see Claressa win her second gold medal, which then it just plays into now where I am now. Like it all was a part of getting me here. It's just such a sweet thing to reflect back on that.
While you were speaking, I was thinking, of course, it makes sense because there's cities with so many boxers. But yeah, going back to what you were saying, also making weight, it's all very well making weight, as we well know. Um, doesn't mean to say you can perform at that weight. Um,
Exactly, right. Yeah, I had
y-
no idea my body composition changed, like, my luckily, I was able to carry my power, so the first tournament, I stopped the first 2 girls that I fought, and then I was able like, got some 8 counts for the 3rd. I was able to see that power transfer, but it's like, but does my endurance is my endurance able to last for the entire tournament? And I got to see at the trials that was not the case. Like, it was just too much back to back. Like my body could not sustain cutting. I was cutting 8 pounds every single night. Like that, we're weighing in every day. Like, so I'm not getting any water in the fight at all. Like, I knew that if I drink water, that's more weight I'm going to have to cut. I'm getting in a sauna suit at the end of every single fight, jump roping for an hour, going into the, it's like I wasn't doing it super great. Looking back, like I would have totally done everything differently. I had no idea how, that was going to be even a thing. I never experienced that. I walked around at my weight basically. I would at 52, I would weigh in at 47, 48 all the time. Like I was a little as I started to cut weight, my body would just, go settle back down to that like 40 upper 40s level. I definitely realized that my body was not happy at that
yeah,
130 pounds.
yeah, I can make it.
Right.
But yeah, but let's be honest, people do find ways that aren't, let's say, healthy to cut weight. However, let's not lie and say that it doesn't happen, because it does happen. In the UK, it's kind of seen as child abuse now. Back in the day, it wasn't. Listen, let's be fair, it wasn't. Nowadays, apparently, it's seen as child abuse to make a young person go through that in order to make weight.
Yeah, I would agree. It gave me an eating disorder. My hair was falling out. Not and when I say that, it's not like clumps, because that could happen. But my thyroid was off, which was causing me to shed, and like my hair thinned a ton. And I was 19. I was about to turn 20. So I was an adult, like and no one forced me into doing any of this. Um, but I definitely can see how even when you're a kid and no one's forcing you to, like, this is you want it so bad and you're like, "No, this is my weight." It I'm glad that we're starting to, at least in a way, um educate our fighters that you're growing. Like, you can go up to this next weight class. Like, it's okay. At least in the amateurs it seems that way, cuz definitely the smartest in amateur boxing should be a place where you learn. It's a place where you glean as much as possible. Win and learn, you don't lose.
It's easy for us to say, especially as adults, listen, I'm not going to shoehorn myself into that weight category. However, we know that sometimes we're gently persuaded. Do you know
Yes.
what I'm saying? And I think that a lot of people find it very difficult to say, no, I don't want to box in that category. I want to box in this category. And I want to also talk to you about, and I'm sure men go through it as well, that weight loss and trying to sort of hold on to your weight. You mentioned that you weren't even drinking in between rounds, stuff like that. That you know would, I'm guessing, teetering on the edges of an eating disorder. How else has that affected you, and how long does it take you to kind of find your way back on the right road?
Gosh, it was so hard because there's so many factors that play into why it was hard. Not just what you just mentioned, that's hard physically, like not drinking in between rounds, restricting to cut the weight. But it was more so mentally taxing because just like I didn't even realize looking at myself in the mirror, I'm seeing muscles that I've never seen because I'm lean. Like I've always been a fairly muscular person, but at 132, I was seeing abs that were popping that I'd never seen. I was seeing striations in my shoulders. I'm looking at someone that I don't recognize in the mirror, and then after the fight, I'm eating like a 152 pounder again because I'm like, oh, like the tournament's over, like this is what I normally do, and my body's like, "Whoa, like that's not who we are anymore." And that's that's
Yeah, I'm laughing. It's not funny, but yeah, it is literally. No, no, totally. It is literally like, hold on, what are we doing here? I thought we were.
yes. It really is, and so, gosh, it was very mentally taxing to then see my body change so quickly because it's like your body your skin is stretchy, like, it will expand, your stomach will expand, like, it's going to go in and out depending on what how you're feeling your body, what you're doing how you're not feeling your body because that's what was happening, I wasn't fueling, and so then post-tournament I, was seeing like, oh, these abs, they disappeared like overnight. Like, wait a second, what happened? And I'm seeing like bloat because it's just inflammation that you're holding on to and water and all the things. And so it really like I've never ever before that point, like up to that point, I never had body image issues. And then lo and behold, I hate myself. Like literally, like I was like, I can't stand looking in the mirror. I'm gonna wear baggy clothes. Like it was such a mental struggle for me. And I really did kind of slip into this depression. And again, I've like if you know me and like my friends can attest to like I am a typically joyful person, especially after like post accepting Christ. Like I was completely different, but I had never experienced this level of like loathing of myself and like loathing of where I was. And then that just spurred me into an eating disorder because then I'm like, well, I hate myself and I haven't been able to eat these things. So I'm just going to binge them all. And it's not overeating. Like it became a point where like I couldn't stop. Like I call it browning out. And it's like I laugh at it because I'm like, this is like crazy to even think, but it's hard, and I I was having an out of body experience in those moments like, "Samantha, stop doing it. Stop, stop." And I'm like, "I can't. Like this it's like I couldn't control my body." And then, you asked kind of how I was able to make that like turning point and be really rescued out of that because that's what it felt like. It felt like I was trapped. Um, and I got to the I mean, I sought out help with, like, therapists, but it was really, something that my dad had asked me. He was like, you don't have to live this way forever. Is this something that you always a place that you always wanna be? Because if you" he basically was like, "Are you gonna stay here, or are you gonna ask God to help give you the strength to get out?" And that wasn't it wasn't in that moment that I was like, "Oh, I'm healed." It was just that was a something that sparked change in me. And I was like, "You know what? You're right. Like I God didn't create me to stay here." That's when I started to like actually make the steps into researching on my own. Like what are some things that I can do? What how can I like connect with other people in this that have been through the same thing? That's been the main thing actually that's helped me is other people.
Firstly, I'd like to say thank you for sharing that because we in the industry know, and of course, you know, there's the glossy side and the fun side. And of course, no one wants to hear about, I guess, all the time about the downside, the negative side of boxing, but it exists. And, we have to be kinder to some fighters that don't make weight, I think, because we don't know what they were going through in order to make that weight.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy and it's usually people outside of the sport that point fingers and say, they should be more professional. But I'm thinking of a situation recently where someone didn't make weight. And of course, there are times where people are unprofessional and they don't make weight. But more often than not, it's because they struggle to make the weight and they're trying to get into a weight category. Am I right?
Yep.
I think more people go through that than most people would think.
Yeah.
And I don't see that as a weakness sharing that. I think that you'll help a lot of people. And you talked about obviously getting help. That's one of the things I think people find difficult sometimes is to reach out and ask for help. But you did that. And yeah, I really commend you for Yeah, this wasn't actually where it was gonna go, but
Honestly, I was just thinking that. I was just thinking how thankful I am that you're allowing me to share. I wasn't prepared to share this. I don't mind
I
sharing it actually
yeah.
because I was thinking as you were, saying, I reach out for help and stuff, but the main thing, and you had mentioned like maybe I could help someone else with my story. That was the main thing that helped me was seeking out other people that had been through what I had been through and had have come out on the other side. And I'm speaking from a place not on the other side. Like I'm going to be very transparent. Like I struggle still. I was able to connect with Claressa and she'd struggled with depression too in a different way. But we were able to, have a really cool conversation when I was staying with her, finishing off camp for this last fight, and it's just cool to hear that other people at this level are struggling. Like it makes such a difference to be affirmed in that way. But I struggle with those thoughts. I'm post fight right now and I'm like, okay, like Lord help me to just have control. Like
What do I do now? I do think, post all the hype, you've kind of built yourself up to this, this critical moment, and then you're like, okay, well, the moment has passed. I don't quite know what to do with myself, and I think that there's a point where you have to kind of learn what to do with yourself, whether that's to take yourself. Some people take themselves off on holiday, whether that's doing something completely away from the sport. But I wanted to take it back to what you were saying about, you spoke to Claressa and she was, kind enough to share. And I'm not trying to minimize this, but I do also think that the whole correlation between making weight and depression, that seems to be a thing.
yes. Yeah, that's why I said I acknowledge that it's hard physically, but it's the mental aspect that's the hardest. And I'm glad that you hit on that. It's not like we don't always need to like be so like we don't need to attack the people that don't make weight all the time. Like I think it's pretty obvious most of the time when people are being disrespectful and they miss weight, because it is our job to do so. But I have a friend that just recently was struggling to make weight, and I know this person. Like she is one of my best friends and I know what she went through to make weight, and she had also gone through a bunch of like cancellations of fights, postponing of date. Like, she had gone through all of this leading up to when she finally got the date finalized and everything. And that also that affects it and makes a difference. And her hormones were so off, like she couldn't sweat anymore. Like it's also different. I mean, I'm not saying that men don't struggle. They have hormones too, but women like being on our periods and it's interesting because we're always told like don't make that an excuse. I fought on my period
Mhm.
before. I've made weight on my period, so I'm not making it as an excuse, but it affects our performance. It affects how much water we're retaining. It affects is our body going to respond to the things that we are doing to cut weight that have worked in the past? Not always do they work currently, with the state of our bodies now, even if we've not changed anything. So I think that like not even just the whole like body image thing and like, it's taxing to keep doing the same things over and over on your mind and your body. It's more like I am doing everything that I can and I'm not seeing the same results. That can be the most like mentally difficult part of it, or even just for me because I knock on wood, I feel like I've never missed weight, but I'm not planning on it. But, we're talking about that concept. Who I have a perfect track record so far of being able to do so, and now I've learned how to do it in a healthy way. I still struggle mentally with am I going to make weight? It's that. It's like okay, I'm constantly my husband will tell you if he was here he'd be like, "Oh my gosh, how many times do I have to talk you off the ledge?" I put myself in this place where I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not going to make weight." My cortisol levels spike. Like I am stressing myself out. And I know that I'm not the only one that deals with that. I know that there are other fighters that are like, dang, like even the ones that don't struggle necessarily, it's seeing that if the scale goes up a little bit, it's like, oh my gosh, what happened? But then if you think about it, it's like, "Oh, wait, I ate a little later the night before," or whatever, I don't know. There's just, like, little things that can affect that. But, yeah, I think that this whole concept is not talked about enough. There needs to be more grace in this conversation, you know?
Uh, yeah, I totally agree, and you just touched briefly on, and I'm no expert, but you touched briefly on, your cortisol, spiking, and, I have read somewhere that that's one of the things that stops a person from losing weight, and
Yes.
then if you add onto that your body, when you're in a camp, is in a constant state of stress, then of course your cortisol levels will spike. So I just wanted to touch on it because I think sometimes people are just a little bit. It's all very well sitting in your armchair going, they should have made weight and they shouldn't have done this and they shouldn't have done that. I'm like, yeah, well, it's not as easy. And also, obviously, over time, over years, you've been boxing for years. It's not easy to make weight, is it? It
No.
really isn't,
No.
unless you're a heavyweight, of course.
Well, right, and, it's funny, I was in on the shuttle to weigh-ins, not this past fight, but the fight before with the heavyweight, and I'm like, "Dude, I'm so upset with you right now."
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but, I was just thinking of what you're talking about post-fight even, like, it's interesting. I struggle with the same thing. I don't necessarily fall into a full-on depression like I had mentioned that I have struggled with in the past, but it's almost like imposter syndrome. I don't know if that's, like, all the way where I am mentally, but it seems like there's similarities in my thinking because especially with this belt, I'm like, "Wait a sec, why am I wait, I should be running. I need to wake up at 5 a.m. and go on a 6-mile run, and, like, I'm the champ now, so I need to be," and it's like, that is such, like, perverted thinking, and it's okay. I like how you mentioned some people go on holiday, like, I could really use one right now. Like, I think that's smart, to, have that R&R, but it's mentally taxing when you go from 0 or 100 to 0 so fast. Like, I, was doing all of these things so, strategically and, very rigid, and then now, I'm at home and I'm loving being home because I finished off camp with Clarissa, so I haven't been home for, like, a month and a half, and so it's been great, but it's also been different. It's been like, "Wait a second, is it okay to sleep in?" Like,
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Can we see the belt? Can we get a closer?
Yeah. She's
Yeah, it's stunning.
pretty.
Yeah.
She's
Sh
heavy.
you know what was going through my mind then as well, and it's a constant reminder, not just, for myself, for people that are tuning in, just to sometimes stop and appreciate, where you are in that moment and what you did to and I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but just looking at that belt and going, "You know what? Wow." I'm gonna tell you a story, Ellie Scottney, when she said she fought in Madison Square Gardens,
Yeah.
and I was asking her about, what was it like to fight in Madison Square Gardens, and she said, "You know what? At the time, I was in such flow that it kind of went over her head, and it's only when she was watching Serrano and Taylor that she was like," she said to her brother, and I quote, "Oi, oi, I fought here." She literally was just like, "What? Oh."
Yep.
What? I just thought here, and I think it's important for you all to kind of go, where was I? And where am I now? And because we're always kind of looking, right, I want to get to undisputed,
Yeah.
which is fine to have those goals. You know what I'm saying? But like to go, hold on a minute, let me just tick this WBA interim bout off the list.
Yes. Yes. No, that's so wise, and also that fight was so good. Ellie did so
Mm. Oh,
beautiful. Um, I'm not gonna lie, I know why they gave Shadeja the, fight of the night bonus, but I was like, "Dang, Ellie also deserves it." That's how I felt. I it was
I'm slightly biased, obviously, but I kind of,
but I'm not,
again,
so
but it's kind of weird because I know. several of the girls from interviewing them, but obviously I know the British girls. So the whole Shadaza Green versus Savannah Marshall, obviously as a Brit, I wanted Savannah to win, and personally, I think she did. I'm not going to lie. However, there was a part of me that when Shadasia got the 250, I was like, and then she cried, and then it was like 20 years. It's taken me 20. uh, There was a part of me that was like, do you know what? Maybe it just wasn't supposed to be Savannah's day today. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
it's as simple as that. It wasn't supposed to be her day. She's had big days. She's had big moments. The grief that came out of Shadasia,
Yeah.
and I was thinking, wow, I wonder what she's had to go through to get to this point. But
Yeah. No, I 100% agree, and, I have my opinions on the fight too, but I agree with that whole analysis. It's interesting, Shadeja was on, Team USA with me whenever I was talking about, being able to lead Clarissa to Christ and, that whole experience, and so I got to know her a little bit then, and hear parts of the story, the time when she was those 20 years, and that was, oh my gosh, that was over 10 years ago at this point. So that's interesting to see that I was in meeting her in the halfway point of that 20 years, and she was in the middle of the struggle, starting to see some of the fruition of her hard work and stuff. But yeah, that it was a sweet moment. And like you said, the fight was close. Like I I was shocked at Shadeja's performance, but I definitely think we have to, in all of those moments when the results are given, or this isn't just in the boxing context, but we have to trust that it's happening as it should. I always say that. I say not that everything happens for a reason, but everything happens as it should. I don't have to know the reason because I know the who that controls the reason. So I think back on my fight, and I'm not gonna lie, even in the fight, I thought I was gonna stop her before the 6th round. Like, I just felt that power, but I didn't, and looking back, that those last few rounds when it was more back and forth, I needed that. Like, I am gonna be such a better fighter and a better champion because of that, and she pushed me to a place that I needed to go, you know? And, I could sit here and be like, "Oh, well, dang, I don't know why I didn't do this. I was supposed to do this," but I can say, "That happened the way that it was supposed to, and now how can I learn from those things that maybe I should have done?"
yeah, 100%. I think, again, I review fights, and of course, it's easy for me or anybody to say should have, could have, would have. The fact of the matter is, I know this from a coach's perspective that just sometimes the pieces don't always come together. And it's as simple as that. So, Saturday, the 26th of July, you fought Victoire Petou for that WBA super lightweight interim title. Yeah, I saw the fight. Literally, you got you're heavy-handed, so and so, and yeah, you like putting people over, don't you?
Yes, I do, and, that that was really the game plan going in. I'm so serious, I'm I feel like I'm very powerful, obviously. I feel like I am could be considered a knockout artist. I don't go into fights looking for the knockout. If it comes, it comes. This fight, I firmly believe that it was going to come. Like I kid you not, especially in the first 3 rounds. I was like, "Oh no, she's not making it out of the 6th round." But and I like I said, I don't view it like that. Like I am I just let the fight go as it goes. Like, I take every moment in stride, and kind of like what Ellie was saying, you just flow. Um, but that, like you said, those pieces didn't fall the way that I thought they were going to. But they fell where they needed to go. And there was definitely a shift in her momentum after the 6th round. And that really it shocked me. I'm not gonna lie. Like not because I was shocked that I didn't put her away, but I was like, "Whoa, she came back to life!" Like that was crazy.
Like,
Uh,
what?
right, and it showed her resilience and her toughness, and she never changed her game plan of how she was fighting. It was just she had more momentum, and And that really was something, like I said, I haven't actually watched the whole fight back, because I just haven't, and not because I'm not going to, but I'm excited to go back and watch those later rounds because as I reflect back on them, I can see adjustments that I can make now, and I'm excited to see the specific adjustments that now I'll be able to look at and be like, "Oh, okay, I can do that," or next time, because she did that, I'll be able to do that, So that was so great for me. Like I just can't emphasize the gratitude that I have for the fight going the distance. And that is not, like, I'm just going to say it again. That is not what I thought I was going to, the mentality I thought I was going to have if the fight went the distance. Cause it was not going the distance if you would have asked me in the middle of it.
You've taken the most out of this fight, and you'll see that when you watch the fight back.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because this happens with not just knockout artists, but usually with knockout artists. They used to put in someone over, and everybody gets used to them putting them over. And then when that person don't get put over, you're like, you said it yourself. You're like, okay, oh, she's come back. What the heck? And sometimes that's where the real good stuff is,
Yeah.
where you find what you're about, when you have to dig into that toolkit and go, okay, well, KO didn't work, so what else is in there? Do you know
Yes.
what I'm saying?
Yes. 100%. And even with this fight specifically, I felt like I didn't even pull out what I actually have, and so that's what is so beautiful to me, that if someone were to watch this fight, and now I'm really excited for the opportunities that are come because of that I have this belt, and the people that are going to want to take it. I'm so excited for that. And I'm also excited for them to watch this fight back and be like, "Oh, like, let's just survive the first 6 rounds, and then this is what I'm gonna do to her," and then I'm gonna be able to meet them with, "That's not the same girl." Like I said, I'm so glad that it happened the way that it did.
Really is good to hear that. Um, and of course, you've mentioned Claressa Shields. I don't think she needs any introduction.
No.
Uh, if anyone's tuning in and doesn't know who she is, get off this podcast. No, I'm joking. Get out. But Claressa Shields, obviously, she started her own promotional company, T-Rex, I believe it's called.
Yep.
So, were you not the first person to sign with T-Rex Promotions?
Yep, I was the first fighter, now the first and only female fighter, but yeah, I was the first fighter to sign. Mhm.
I mean, listen, there are going to be some people out there that would say, "Oh, well, she only signed you because you're a friend." What was that process like? You joining her? Did you have to have a meeting, or how did it all come about?
I will say, because I could see that being a perspective. But to that, I will say, if you actually know Claressa, she doesn't do anything she don't want to do, and she doesn't do it without purpose, and she doesn't just associate herself with people that aren't going to shine with her. That's what I'll say to that. Like, she just surrounds herself with excellence. So for me to be the first fighter to sign with her wasn't because she's my friend or whatever. She would, if she didn't believe in me, she would say, "Hey, I love you in the Lord, but no." Like,
but but
like,
here's the thing. Yeah, what I've seen over the years is she has been someone that's championed other women, but that hasn't necessarily come back the other way.
Mhm. Yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying?
yes, I do. And I've seen it more recently. Like, not that I
Mm.
didn't pay attention before, but I just think, with like the Amanda Katie trilogy and, I mean, I think it's mainly because women's boxing is on the up and up, and, we're selling out arenas, and, we're getting more recognition, which is so beautiful and great. But it's like Clarissa has been doing that from the beginning, like, trying to, like you said, champion women's sports in general, but specifically women's boxing. Even with petitioning in the amateurs to get us paid what we deserve, and, equal pay to the men. Um, People don't know about that. Like, they don't know the conversations that she was in, and, the way that she advocated for us. But now she's doing it in the pro ranks, and it's interesting to even look back on the Katie and Amanda fight, she went there with her own money. Like, champions, they're normally flown out, and that's because they do that because they want to, promote women's boxing and shine a light. But, Clarissa, she just wanted to be there because of how she believes in women's boxing. So she was not flown out. She did that out of her own pocket. And I think that's just a testament to how she really does believe in women's boxing.
Again, this is not either of us trying to undermine the platform that Amanda Serrano and Jake Paul has provided for women. That's amazing. At this particular moment, though, we're just talking about Claressa Shields. I do think that if we set that aside, I don't think she gets the flowers that she deserves. And I just wonder from me looking over to the USA, I'm kind of like, I hear she wasn't on a Wheatie box. I hear, she struggled to get after her medals, 2 medals, that she struggled to get sponsorship. I used to see all the time, you can see who's liking on social media, who's liking whose things. And let me tell you, there were very, very few women that were constantly propping up and I think selflessly kind of helping and promoting and backing other female fighters. And I used to see Claressa Shields all the time.
Yeah.
All the time I used to see her little heart here, there and everywhere. So I guess the question I'm trying to ask is, in your opinion, why do you think that Claressa Shields doesn't get the flowers that she deserves?
I think that at least at this point, it's because there's so many people that, like, she claims that she's the GOAT. Like, she is the self-proclaimed GOAT. I think that her resume affirms that title. That is, I don't think that's opinion. I think that's fact if you look at her resume. But that is my opinion. Um, but I think that because of that, and she's hit on this, if she wouldn't have given herself those flowers, nobody would have, because nobody was, like you were saying. But I think at this point, people want to be her so bad that they don't want to actually illuminate her light. Like, they don't want to put her up on that pedestal and give her those flowers because they're like, well, no, if she doesn't deserve them, that should be me. That's an interesting place to be because I look at it from my perspective, I am under her as far as a fighter, but I told her, I said, "You're obviously where you are, that's the goal, but I don't wanna be you. I wanna be me at that level." And I think that's where, if we changed our perspective and we looked at her like that, we looked at Amanda like that, we looked at Katie like, that would help us to illuminate them and raise them up, because ultimately that's gonna raise us up once we're there, you know? I feel like because of how Clarissa is, and, she's spurring me on, she's instilled in me, like, I mean, I wanna support women's boxing anyways, but I feel like, she's my mentor in boxing, so she's helped me also to just, like, praise women at all times. Like, yeah, I want, even in my weight class, like, kudos to you. Like, that's gonna make our fight bigger. It's like that's gonna help me. And that's how Clarissa's always been. And so I think that, that would ultimately promote women's boxing to where we really want it to be if we were all coming together and helping each other shine. But, looking back in the beginning of her career where this all started, beginning meaning the beginning of the rise, of Claressa Shields, her winning the medals and stuff. They claim that it's, she wasn't marketable or she wasn't this or that. That's, to me, that's a bunch of BS because marketability can be taught. Like, that, if you put resources into someone and you believe in them, that's why she's like, if I didn't call myself the GOAT, nobody would. It's like,
It's about the belief, and they
yes,
didn't believe in her, and I'm like,
yes,
how can you not believe in somebody that brought you 2 medals home?
yes.
And you're right, it is BS. I don't wanna hear that nonsense
Right. Like,
about she's not marketable.
how did we not rally around her and raise her up? Like, she gave the country 2 gold medals. Like,
2,
when
you know.
when's the last time that we got a gold medal in boxing? exactly. So that it's just like, look at she's been the lasted years, like multiple Olympics. The Olympics are every 4 years, so that's a lot of years. Like, so yeah, I just think like for American pride specifically, like we we failed her, really.
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to agree. I'm gonna have to agree.
Yeah.
And going back to, Clarissa being a champion to other women, testament. She sat in the crowd. Because I was like, girl, what are you doing? Either you are so confident that you're going to beat this girl up, or you're just somebody that's able, you're so experienced, you're able to flick that switch when you need to. But she sat in the crowd, not watching it on a, and again, I don't blame anybody that sits in their dressing room and watches it while they're getting the hands wrapped. But she came and she got involved in the crowd
Yep.
and was, right behind you,
Yep.
coaching you at the side.
She literally walked me out. Like,
Yeah, that's
what?
crazy.
Like, I am thinking back on when you were talking about Ellie, like she's thinking about this, just that surreal experience, and it didn't really hit her. I'm like, it didn't hit me till I went back home. Like, I'm like, wait a second. Like,
She walked, and just for context, because there might be some people that aren't boxing people. So yes, some boxers will fight, and then they will get changed. They'll see the doctor, whatever, and they'll come out and watch the main event. But we're talking about the main event before her fight. Flipped it, came out. My girl, hey, those dresses
you
though were
stepped out,
slamming.
right?
Okay.
Right?
All right. Do you know what though makes me laugh? And again, I'm just going to go on a. It does not what makes me laugh. It's hurting people. It's hurting people. How so they complained that she couldn't dress, and they complained about that she needed to get a stylist, and then they complained that she wasn't marketable, and then she did this glow up, and now that's annoying them.
Yep. It's no one is ever going to be happy. And the thing is, I said this in a conversation yesterday. None of it phases her. And it's beautiful. Like that is one of the most admirable things. There's a lot of things that I admire about Clarissa. But one of the most admirable is just how nothing ever phases her. Like and it's not just even haters and whatever, like even just like situations that might instill panic, like she does not ever freak out. Like she's like, okay, what is the solution? How can we move past? And all of the haters, it's interesting. She might react because that's just, she's just going to clap back because that's who she is. But even when she claps back, it's not bothering her. Like, it's not knocking her off of her game. Like, it's just really wasting their time. Like, it's a
No,
waste of
wasting
breath.
her time.
Well,
But
well,
sometimes you've got, yeah, sometimes you don't have to cut back. But then I also understand that there's that there's that side of you that you think, I'm not letting them get away with.
yeah. And that's really what it is.
We've seen this kind of new buzz around the female game because of Jake Paul, Amanda Serrano, and MVP Promotions. But what is your pet peeve still about with the sort of female game?
I think it just goes back to what we are talking about, just like how we don't champion each other as much as we should. Because I genuinely think that I even think about like my future opponents and how we could be spurring one another on to greatness and then making the biggest fights. Like, and I honestly think that we saw glimpses of that with Katie and Amanda, just the respect that they had for one another, even despite like the feelings that Amanda had about the decisions or like Katie had about how Amanda felt, or there was definitely that like the tension that needs to be there and felt when you have I don't even know if you want to call them rivals, but they were with just how big the trilogy got. um but I definitely saw that mutual respect really uh just illuminate who they were as fighters and are as fighters. But I felt like it made the show bigger and better because of that, you know? And I think that if we took that perspective, that doesn't mean that there can't be, some trash talk. I think Clarissa, back to her, she does that very well. She
Yeah.
respects, she's going to be like, I respect you, but I'm going to knock you out. Like she'll, in the same sentence, she uses a lot of I statements, and she's not belittling them. She uses I statements. I'm the best, but, like, kudos to you for challenging me. It's just that respect is what needs to be there so that then we can champion one another, and then really just highlight how great women are.
Who is the most influential person in your life, and how did they impact you?
You know, that is such a loaded question because it's like, what area? um, that's how I feel because, ultimately, like, I feel like the churchy answer would be Jesus. But I view it as who has Jesus put in my life to influence me. Um, and I honestly like the first person that popped in my head and the one that keeps on popping in my head the more I think about it is my mom. And I'm not gonna get emotional. I won't do it. But
God, let me squeeze those tears out.
it does make me emotional thinking about it just because of, everything that my mom and I've been through. She is my best friend. Apart from my husband, like where I love him, no disrespect to him, but my mom, she had me when she was 21, so she was a fairly young mom, and mom and dad had just got married when she got pregnant with me, so it was like, two kids trying to raise a kid, and just seeing how she like pushed through all of the things that life was throwing at her as a young mom, a young wife, like she went back to dental school actually when I was 8. Like I got to see her, become a dentist when I was in middle school, and just I got to see her do, we are talking about, the girl boss thing, like she owns her own practice now. My parents started a church a few years ago, so she's doing that with my dad. Like she's able to be that like incredible business and ministry partner with him. And so I've been raised by the strongest woman that I know. And to be called to a sport that is that embodies strength and empowerment, it has been that is what has created me into this strong woman that I am, is seeing how strong my mom is and being raised by one.
You've briefly touched throughout the podcast on Jesus. You are a Christian. I think you've talked about, obviously, in the past that kind of going through a difficult time. Was there a specific moment where you kind of, I guess, renewed that relationship with God?
I always say that my story starts that I was born into the church. My dad always says I was in the church 9 months before I was born because I literally like there's not been a day where we weren't involved at some capacity, but I also never went a day without knowing the name of Jesus, which is so beautiful and something I am grateful for now. Growing up, it felt kind of like a burden. I definitely experienced that like double life, like, oh, I have to fit this mold when I'm at church, and then I'm this person when I'm with my friends or, whatever. And so when boxing entered my life, I started boxing at 12. It was very easy for me to make that my identity and my foundation. And because I'm a strong female, like physically, it was very easy to get quick success. I was, able to win my first national championship when I was 16. And then that kind of just like spurred me along to the others that I won, and, getting it. This kind of meets up to the story that I shared earlier where I was on Team USA a couple times. And so then when I got to that tournament that I got silver, I claimed to have a relationship with God all throughout that entire time. And I'm telling you before, like I was so angry at God, like, why didn't you reward me? Like I'm trying to give you all the glory, but really I wasn't. It was all me. I'm like, why didn't you give me this and me, 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 me? And then it's just like, you're missing the point is what I felt like he was telling you. You're missing the point, kid. And then after
She'll learn.
right. And I mean, really, like that part because I mean, he in the way that he met me in such a sweet way, not in a like, "Oh, I'm gonna teach her," but in a, "Hey, come here, like, let me embrace you" way, and love you, but then also, like, change you into who I've created you to be. Like, God's love, it's transforming, it is not condemning and it's not shameful. He is love, and so, that's February 8th, 2015. You mentioned if there was a moment, and that was the moment that I fully surrendered my life to him and everything changed. It was like I don't say, they say like, "Oh, it's like I saw clearly." Like, no, it's like he implanted new eyes into my body and I saw in color for the first time. It was like I everything was like bright and just full of life and so that was when I really was able to see the purpose in everything that I'd gone to prior, even the good and the bad, like I saw why everything happened the way that it did. And that was, just over 10 years ago now. And now, where I am with him and just how I'm continuing to grow in that relationship, it's just been so cool how like the consistency has obviously been his love for me, but just his faithfulness in always being by my side, through everything. I just went through a camp where I had no one. I mean, I was staying with Claressa, so we had each other, but it's like two fighters, like we're not just gonna be buddy buddy all the time, we're going through our own stuff. And so like we were in the same house, but we were doing, our own stuff. And so I went through kind of a isolating and lonely camp, which boxing, that's just boxing. And I felt the closest to Jesus that I have in a really long time because he has always been there, and that's been really the theme. If there was one thing that I have held on to since that day in February of 2015, it's that he will never leave me, and he never has.
I think there's a misconception about Christian boxers because the person that I see in the ring,
Oops. It doesn't add up.
it doesn't add up.
Hey, the
But I,
Bible says that he's an all-consuming fire, okay? And and my nickname is the Heat.
but it's funny because I do think there's a misconception about how you're supposed to behave, and but it does make me laugh when I seen a few of your fights. I was like, really,
I'm like,
really,
"Listen, let me knock you out in the name of Jesus."
in the name of Jesus. But also the thing is, yeah, like I'm like those those punches have got
And
some power.
it's interesting that you say that because my the one of the coaches that I work with here in California, because I now work with Claressa's coach, Coach John David Jackson. So,
Hmm.
he's based out of Florida. But I have a trainer here and he accepted Christ last January. Like I was able to like pour into him. Oh gosh, girl, it's just beautiful all that God is doing in this sport and I'm just a part of it and it's so cool. He's like, I now understand that strength, that extra strength. I always thought it was like a superpower that you had, but now I get it. I'm like, yes, that's where my strength comes from, and I'm not saying every Christian has this like, crazy right hand or something, but it is like just this extra like level that we can reach.
Powered by God.
Yes, they really like listen.
Did you? I was just aware when I was throwing them. I look like I can't punch. I've got a mic. I've got a mic in between me. Obviously, with this day and age in boxing, you kind of have to be, have a loads of followers, be super popular, and it kind of seems to be that's more important than having kind of the skill set these days.
Yeah.
And I just started to wonder today, like, as a Christian or even as a Muslim, somebody of faith, right? I'm talking specifically somebody of faith. You know, how do you resist the temptation to, let's say, not do some of the things that probably would illuminate you quicker,
Yeah.
um, and lift your presence quicker than if you waited on God?
That's a really good question because it is like you're looking at these people that have not put in the hours in the gym, have not paid their dues, so to speak, and you feel like jit of an opportunity when you see them getting opportunities that you might think that you deserve. In a way, I'm like, what do I deserve? I have to take a step back and it's like, I deserve death. I deserve to have that what Jesus took for me on the cross. And so number 1, I need to check myself in the entitlement area. That was for me. That just now. um but really what I was going to say is I have to take a beat and really I pray for favor. And not like I think that an anointing, like if you wanted to give like some words to it, those are spiritual words. It's just basically like I pray that God would be that person to illuminate me and for him to make it clear what opportunities and avenues he has for me. It's not I don't just sit back and go, okay, God, you do it, like
I think you kind of answered my next question, which is, yeah, what do you, because we hear all the time, don't we? And it's kind of starting to become a bit of a, in my opinion, and maybe that's my judgy side that I need to work on. But you hear people talk about God's time, God's timing on particularly social media, and it seems to have become a kind of hashtag rather than a real thing of what you've just talked about. Listen, when we talk about God's time, what does that mean to you?
in the context of like you're waiting for something or like should I do this or is this God's you're asking that question like is this what I may or may not do, is it God's time for me to do that? You ask him for that clarity. um I will say that, but for me he speaks in circumstances. So I'm gonna go back to Clarissa signing me and that whole story of how we came to that conclusion. um, and I had been talking with her she's been pouring into my career since really the beginning, but specifically and intentionally since my second fight. And I'm just asking her for advice, like, hey, what do you think about this? Or should I do this? I was still on the local level, which is super hard and grueling. Um, and despite the accolades that I had gained as an amateur, I didn't have an Olympic gold medal or anything. So like it's very hard for fighters when you're starting out pro. But she we got to the point where she had introduced me to Dimitri, but then we're trying to come up with this uh agreement and it's just not working out for whatever reason. Like we're just trying to come to an agreement and in our negotiations, and it wasn't that he was doing this or I was doing that. It's just like it was a long drawn out process. Well, then Clarissa was just like, you know what? I've been praying about this and I want to start I'm gonna sign you. Like I'm starting my own promotion. You're gonna be my first fight. And that what I mean by God speaking in circumstances, it wasn't working out for me to just sign with Salida because Clarissa had to come to that conclusion with him. Like she had to come to that decision to go ahead and start her promotion, and things had to work out in that area first, and then we were to sign together, and then Salida's that co-promoter, so it all was working out like so perfectly. But I believe that God was very clear to me that this is not working out for a reason. Oh, hey, it's because of this.
What's the biggest takeaway that you hope listeners will get from this?
I hope that people are able to see the heart of Jesus in me, just how much God loves them and that I'm able to radiate that. So that would be definitely the number one thing that I hope that they get out of it. And really on top of that is, just how incredible women's boxing is. Boxing in general, I obviously I love the sport, but I don't think that women's boxing gets the recognition that it deserves. But I just think that there are so many incredible women athletes in general, but specifically in the sport of boxing, we have such beautiful stories, and I hope that this opportunity to share mine touches someone's heart and they're able to see, what we have to offer.
What's next for the Heat?
Oh man, I hope belts upon belts upon belts. But honestly though, I'm hoping to get a defense before the end of the year, at least one. And talking to my team about, who's gonna be the best option for that. So if you want to come take this belt, hit me up. But other than that, I am looking forward to seeing, what does happen with Katie Taylor's belts if she chooses to keep
Mm.
them, and maybe there's a future fight with us. I think that would be really glorifying to God. We both love Jesus. That'd be so cool. But
Let the girl rest! Let the girl rest!
I know, right?
I feel sorry for her. Everyone's like trying to snatch them belts out. She's like, no.
Right, right. I know. I'm like, dang, how many people can call her out?
Share your socials so people can kind of get behind you and learn more about your story.
And on all platforms is at Sammy underscore the Heat, Sammy Worthington on Facebook.
I'm grateful and I'm blessed that people give me their time. So thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for just giving me this opportunity to share and for really creating a space where I can authentically share because that is also something that you don't see a lot on podcasts is, it's more of a curated experience and questions, but this has just been super authentic. So thank you.